It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good Saturday morning. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. Happy New Year to you. For those of you that are just tuning in, this is a program where we talk real estate. We talk national, regional, local news. I go through the stats. I tell you what I experienced as a top agent here in the Charleston market for the past 5 years. So before we begin, if you would like to reach out to me, if there's anything that I say that strikes a chord, or if there's anything that you'd like more information on, or if you'd like to, have me do a consultation for you on buying or selling a home, please reach out to me. My phone number is 843-345-1273. And my website, probably the best way to reach me, is listingsincharleston.com. You can go on there and search the MLS, read some testimonials from past clients, learn a little bit more about what I do to sell property, which we're going to get into later on in this show. All that good stuff. So listingsincharleston.com or 843-345-1273. So here's what I have planned for this show. We've got a lot of people and a lot of different sections of media giving the end of the year report for 2013. I gave you that last week on my show, and that was a double show because I spent some time in Virginia with some family that I get to see once a year. And I tell you what, I always used to say that I enjoyed the seasons change when I lived in Virginia, and that I missed that when I moved to Charleston. It was cold in Virginia, bone-chilling cold, 20 degrees. It sure was nice to come home to some 60-plus degree weather. So here's what I want to do. I want to give you just a quick recap on what happened in 2013. I'll talk about the national market, regional market, local market, give you some stats, and just kind of look at the big picture as a whole. And then next segment, we're going to talk about what I think is going to happen in 2014, which is a positive, outlook. I'm optimistic for 2014. I know that some people don't share that opinion, but I think it's going to be a great year. So anyways, here's what happened in 2013. Let's talk first about, let's not necessarily talk about housing first. Let's talk about stocks. Let's just talk about the market in general. The outlook for 2013 was that since the Fed was expected to raise rates, that equities were predicted to climb by 8% or so. But what actually happened was the Fed didn't raise rates. Stocks kept rallying. Equities soared more than expected, up close to 25%. So great year if you were playing on some stocks. Bonds, the outlook was that long-term rates were expected to rise. Investors were, basically warned to wean their exposure to government debt and especially treasuries. But what actually happened was market interest rates did rise, and funds that invest in long-term U.S. Treasury bonds lost more than 10%, at least through November of 2013. And then if we look at jobs, it was, the outlook was that we were going to add around 173,000 new jobs on a monthly basis, and we produced a little over 190,000 new jobs a month. So labor market improved. And then if you look at housing, we had a lot of good things happen to us. We've had a few things happen to us that aren't so good. But overall for housing, the outlook, if you look at it from this time last year, was that the real estate market was going to stabilize. Buyers were ready to kind of jump off the fence, come off the sidelines, and that prices were expected to rise, but the National Association of Realtors said it was only supposed to rise by 1%. Well, what happened was they rose by 12%. Sellers didn't really get to the market fast enough. Demand rose among buyers, and prices rose 12%. That's what happened across the board. So that's basically what happened in housing, but let's kind of dissect that a little bit and talk about a few of the more important subjects that affected those numbers. First and foremost, I think that a large part of our recovery, and many experts share this opinion, is that the large part of the recovery was due to investors. We still had a lot of investors in 2013 picking up properties. We've had a big decrease in short sales and foreclosures and just distressed property in general when you look at it compared to 2012, certainly compared to 29 through 2013 or 2011. So investment properties really made up a pretty large percentage of what we closed on. And that got us through a very busy spring, very busy summer. And then October 1st hit, and we've talked about this a lot on this program, but the flood insurance issues started to get put into play. And if you're unfamiliar with what's going on in flood insurance, it's still happening. Nothing's changed. But especially in Charleston County, if your home was built prior to 1971, then you did not require a flood elevation certificate. There were no requirements for you to build your home a certain number of feet off of the ground. So I guess if you really wanted to, you could build a house on a slab on the water. Probably wouldn't be a logical thing to do, but you could do it because there were no guidelines governing that. So what happened? There's something called the Biggert-Waters Act of 2012, and it took effect October 1st of 2013. And what it says is that if your home was built prior to 1971 and you've been receiving basically a subsidized rate, a lower than normal rate for your home, those rates are going to change. They're going to go up in many instances. So you are no longer able to be kind of grandfathered in like you've been for the past number of years or decades. You can't assume flood insurance policies anymore. So what does that mean? It means that a lot of the properties in flood zones are expecting to have an increase in flood insurance. Now, it's not all homes, but it's a good majority of them. So do me a favor and just when you stop listening to this show at 9 o'clock today, write yourself down a little reminder to call your insurance agent and have a discussion with them about what's planned for you for 2014 as it relates to flood insurance. You don't want to get caught. You don't want to be surprised by a spike in your flood insurance because unfortunately, this is the truth. There have been some cases of properties going from $3,000 a year to $30,000 a year in flood insurance. So just make sure that doesn't happen to you. Arm yourself with the proper information. What else happened in 2013? Of course, we had the government shutdown right around that same time. I don't think that had such a huge effect on our market. I think it was really more just, the buzz and the hype that got people excited about it and nervous about it. That coupled with all the flood insurance stuff certainly didn't help. HUD changed their guidelines for foreclosures and short sales and for buyers that are using FHA mortgages. So if you did a short sale or got foreclosed on, you could buy an FHA mortgage home in as little as 12 months after that short sale or foreclosure, which is amazing because we've been anticipating, at least investors have been anticipating, that the people that got foreclosed on or that had to do a short sale are going to be renters for quite a while because they just can't get a loan unless they pay cash for a house. They're going to rent for the next few years. So our rental market did fantastically well in 2013. I own investment properties. I help a lot of investors buy investment properties from $50,000 to several million. So it just depends on what they're looking for and what their return on investment requirements are and how we approach each individual investment property. In fact, I met with a guy just earlier this week who heard me on the show talking about investment properties. He said it makes sense to him. He's excited about it. He wants to create some additional cash flow streams and a retirement plan through real estate, and we are actively working on opportunities for him. So the investment market, great market for that. Let's see, 2013, we had an extension to the Mortgage Foreclosure Debt Forgiveness Act. And I want to go into this because as of right now in 2014, it has not been extended. So what this act did, again, it's called the Mortgage Foreclosure Debt Forgiveness Act, is that if you had a short sale and it was your primary residence, up to $2 million of the difference between what you owe and what you sell it for would not be considered income. See, what used to happen when you did a short sale is that, let's say you owe $300,000 on your house and you sell it for $250,000, that $50,000 would be treated as taxable income. Well, they passed this act to get rid of that because the last thing sellers need, especially those that have lost their job or have major medical expenses that have, cost them more than they can afford, or they've had a major curtailment of income, or something has happened, last thing they need is a tax bill at the end of the year to pay, a percentage of the amount forgiven. So as of right now, that has not been extended into 2014. If it does, you'll be the first to know, because I'll tell you guys. But that's another big story in 2013 that has not extended over to 2014. So coming up next, I want to talk about what I'm expecting for 2014. That was just kind of a snapshot of what happened last year. I'll tell you what happened in the Tri-County area in 2013, Charleston County, Berkeley County, Dorchester County. We'll do that first, next segment. And then, of course, I want to talk to you about what most people are doing right around this time of year. If they've had their home on the market, they're trying to figure out why their home hasn't sold and what they need to do that. So I want to give you some tips to sell your home. And I don't want to give you kind of the honest facts about what the good real estate agents do to market property versus what the agents do that just put it on the MLS and wait for a buyer to come through. So stick with us. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. And again, reach out to me, www.listingsincharleston.com, or call me at 843-345-1273, 843-345-1273. I'll be right back.
More stimulating talk on real estate matters with Brian Beatty next on 1250 WTMA. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. My name is Brian Beatty. I'm your host. And last segment, we talked about what happened in 2013. I gave you kind of a pretty broad base overview of just the market in general, even touched a little bit on stocks, bonds, and the just economy overall. So I know that I said at the very beginning of that segment that I was going to tell you what happened in Charleston, Dorchester, and Berkeley County, and I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent talking about some of the big news stories in 2013, and I want to give you that information before I forget, because I know that I have a strong listenership here that appreciates the numbers like I do. I'm a big stats guy. I always look at what's going on in the market, and of course I do all that so that I can help you guys make informed real estate decisions. So again, if I say anything that you'd like more information on, if there's anything I can elaborate on and have it kind of be catered to you specifically, please give me a call. My number is 843-345-1273. Or you can just visit my website, www.listingsincharleston.com. You can search for real estate there on the MLS. I've got my listings on there, sold listings. You can read some testimonials. You can click on the sellers tab, and you can take a look at my marketing plan and learn a little bit more about my 59-day home sale guarantee. So again, reach out to me, 843-345-1273. Okay, let's get into these numbers really quickly, because this segment I want to talk about what I think is going to happen in 2014, and then a little bit later on in the show, I want to give you just the facts, I think, on what most agents tell you they're going to do when they list your home for sale, and then what actually happens, because we're at a point in time right now where people have had their home on the market for, I don't know, a few months, or in some cases a few years, and they want to sell their house and they just haven't been able to do it. They want to figure out why. I'm going to give you kind of some market tips and some inside information here on what agents say and what they actually do. And then I'll let you decipher that information for yourself and for your own situation. So, all right, let's look at Charleston County really quickly. Single family detached homes. We had about an 18% increase in new listings. We had a 26% increase in closed sales. The median sales price rose a little over 8%. The average days on market for sold properties was only 76 days. That's down from 98 days last year. So that shows you that we are in a seller's market in Charleston County. If you look at the condos in Charleston County, condos and townhouses, the single family attached housing, we only had about a 7.5% increase in new listings. Closings were up about 15%. Prices, prices were up 13%. And the average days on market went from 87 this year Last year in 2012, it was 127 days on the market. So clearly Charleston County recovered. The majority of the markets within Charleston County are a seller's market. Mount Pleasant, my God, is less than 3 months worth of inventory. I think I did a search earlier this week, and there were only 7 houses for sale under $250,000, and most of them were just needed a ton of work. All right, let's move over to Berkeley County. Single family detached market. New listings were up 15%. Closings were up close to 20%. The median sales price was up 3.5%. And homes were selling on average in 73 days for 95% of the listing price. In 2012, they were selling in 90 days for 93% of their listing price. Condos and townhouses in Berkeley County, new listings were up almost 30%. Closings were up almost 20%. The median sales price was up 13.5%. That's a pretty nice jump. It went from $110,000 on average in 2012 to $125,000 on average in 2013. That's a pretty nice jump there. If you look at the average days on market for single-family attached housing in Berkeley County, it went from 94 days at almost 10% off the listing price in 2012 to 70 days and 94% of the list price in 2013. So again, a nice recovery there. Not a huge jump in price in the single-family detached market, but certainly in the condos and the townhouses. And it used to be, back in 2010, 2009, 2011, around there, that you could go and you could buy a nice townhouse in Berkeley County for $50,000 and rent it out for $850, $900, $950 a month. And you're looking at a return on your investment of 12, 13, 14, sometimes 15%. So prices are jacking up a little bit, but so are the rental income numbers. So I know that a lot of investors were thinking, well, I've kind of missed my mark on that. You haven't. You just need to find the situations that allow for those numbers, and it's possible. It's just a little harder. Dorchester County, single-family detached market. New listings were up 12.5%. Closings were up 21%. The median sales price was up 3%. And the average days on market in 2013 was 70. Properties were selling for 5% off of their list price. And in 2012, they were selling in 93 days for 93% of their listing price. So basically an increase across the board, Dorchester County for the single-family detached market. And then a huge increase in closings in the townhouse and condo market in Dorchester County. New listings were up 12.5%, but closings were up almost 33%. That's a huge number. Median price was up 9%. It went from $92,000 in 2012 to $100,000, or $250,000 in 2013. And in 2012, condos and townhouses in Dorchester County were selling in 91 days for 91% of their list price, whereas in 2013 it jumped down to 65 days for 5.5% off the list price. So the days on market in 2013 decreased almost 30%. That's pretty huge. It's almost a full month. They were selling in 3 months. Now they're selling in 2 months. So good stuff. So let's talk about 2014. Let's talk about what we think is going to happen here. First of all, I'm optimistic about 2014, and part of the reason for doing this show is so that I can share my experiences with you. I've been in the top 1% of agents here for the past 5 years in a row. I've sold a few hundred homes in that time frame. 2013, we closed out at, I think, right around 20 million. So I'm in the market. I'm selling a multitude of properties a month. That gives me a unique perspective. And so I want to share that with you because I want to help you plan. I want to make sure that your goals are realistic, achievable, and I just want to give you the information so you can use it for your own situation, make your own decisions, but at least you have the right information. So here's what's going on in 2014. I think it's going to be another busy year. I just don't think the price gains are going to jump up as quickly as they did in 2013. I was saying for the past 6 months that I don't think that this recovery is sustainable at this pace. And I think that many experts in this arena agree. In fact, the Case-Shiller Index said that they're forecasting a 6.8% increase in the median home value in 2014. So Again, we were at 12% in 2013, 6.8% in 2014. That's still a good number. That's still a lot of positive traction. Just not as rapid, I think. Inventory is already improving. We're starting to see new construction really take off. Buyer demand remains high. It's a seller's market in many areas of our Tri-County area. I think buyers are also going to enjoy an advantage next year as real estate investors are expected to kind of be less of a factor. I think what's happened is a lot of people have decided to become investors, and you have that, but then you also have the investors that basically are a collection of people that are institutional investors. I mean, they're buying hundreds of properties at a time, and they've targeted Charleston as an area that they want to be in because of the way our numbers look. So I think it's going to be a positive year. I do think that interest rates are going to rise. I don't think that that's going to happen too fast, and I don't think that it's going to be, I don't think we're looking at 6% interest rates by the end of the year. Frankly, I just don't. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that they're going to increase it so quickly that it's not sustainable. We're just now at a point where we're making some momentum in the right direction. The last thing that I think they're going to do from a common sense standpoint is kind of kick us back down and slow down this recovery. I think that interest rates can and will rise. I just don't think that it's going to happen as quickly as a lot of people fear that they will. Rents, I think rents are going to continue to go up. There is still a huge demand for rental properties, and inventory is just an issue. So I think that rents are going to continue to increase. So that's good for investors. Yes, prices are rising, but so are rents. I don't think that they're going to increase at the pace that they did last year. I mean, I know one of my investment properties went from getting $1,500 a month to $2,000 a month. I mean, that's a 25% increase or a little more. So I think that's what's going to happen with rents. If you're a buyer, I think it makes sense to try and find the right property now. I think that waiting is going to end up costing you in the long run. It's going to end up costing you in money based on the interest rate. And then, of course, with a market where prices are rising, you're going to end up paying more for the same house now. So if you're in the market now, I don't suggest procrastinating. Next, I want to talk about sellers. I'm going to dedicate 2 segments to this. So stick around. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. And again, reach out to me at 843-345-1273 or my website, listingsincharleston.com.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, and good Saturday morning. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Let's see, last 2 segments we talked about what happened in 2013. I kind of gave you an overview of just the market in general. We even broke it down by county, Charleston County, Dorchester County, and Berkeley County. So if you're just joining us and you want to know what happened in 2013, feel free to give me a buzz. My number is 843-345-1273. Or if you'd like, you can go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. You can poke around on there. You can search the MLS, take a look at what I have listed for sale, look at my sold properties, read testimonials. And if you click on the sellers tab, I'm going to dedicate this next 2 segments to sellers. So if you click on the sellers tab, you'll find out a little bit more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. So again, that website, listingsincharleston.com. My cell phone, 843-345-1273. So we talked about what happened in 2013, and we just finished talking about what I think is going to happen in 2014. And I talked about, I kind of led into this segment with what I think is going to happen for sellers. And this next 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes or so, I want to talk about avoiding mistakes when listing your home on the market. And then for the last segment, I know that there are a bunch of people out there listening right now that have had their home on the market and it hasn't sold. And this is a very unique time of year, and I'll tell you why. A lot of listing agreements are written so that they expire on December 31st. So what happens January 1st? There is this huge list of expired and withdrawn properties, and real estate agents of all walks of life, all 5,000 of them, it seems, pull this list together. They go on the white pages, they find your number somehow, some way, and they start calling and calling and calling. And I'd venture a guess that if you had your home on the market last year and it expired on December 31st, by this time next weekend, you will probably have received 100 calls. I'm not kidding about that. And I know that some of you are driving and you're shaking your head, or you're probably punching your steering wheel because it just gets to the point where you want to cancel your landline service. So first thing I want to talk about is 10 things to avoid doing when putting your house on the market this year. Of course, outside of all of that, not calling me to interview as your listing agent. But no, let's get into this list. The first thing that you want to avoid is selling your home before you're ready. Putting your home on the market, really, it can be exciting. You can get, real excited about the fact of putting it on the market. But if you list it before you're ready, before your family's ready, before you've kind of thought about the entire process from start to finish, you could really set yourself up for some unpleasant experiences. Figure out where you're moving to next. I know that sounds like kind of a silly thing to say, but plenty of sellers put their home on the market and say, oh, it's sold in 10 days. Well, I guess I need to figure out where I'm going to live. So that's number one, selling before you're ready. Number two, entering the housing market blindly. I see this all the time, especially among for sale by owners. If you're going to list your house for sale, don't you think it's important to take an in-depth look at the market, at what's going on in your neighborhood, even what's going on your street? I mean, we have some neighborhoods where there's 4 or 5 houses for sale on the street, and I'll go and I'll sit down with a seller and I said, have you been following what's going on, in your area, especially when it's a for sale by owner? Tell me about what's selling in your area. And of course, I know the answer to this stuff because I printed off the material before I got to the appointment. But they said, well, we think that it's worth this because we bought it back in 2006 for $300,000, and we'd like to get what we paid for it. And that obviously has nothing to do with what it's worth now. So I know this is common sense stuff, but don't enter the housing market blindly. Make sure you do your research and make sure that the agent that you sit down with can explain this to you clearly. If they're just showing you pieces of paper and saying this one was, this was $295, this was $305, this was $325, so we should probably list for around $310. Make sure that you're diving into more detailed information. Well, why was this $295? What did they have that I don't, or vice versa? Don't just look at price per square foot. What comprises that price per square foot? What's different? Anyways, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine because pricing is one of the most important aspects to selling property, and it's something that agents, quite frankly, have a very difficult time with. So choose your agent wisely, I guess. Number 3, choosing to sell by owner without doing some research. Again, I see this a lot. It's not an unheard of scenario, putting the house on the market, not really knowing what to expect, not knowing how to prepare your home for sale, not knowing which forms to use. How do you go about showing a property to a stranger? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? There's just a ton that goes into selling for sale by owner. So if, I'll say this, if you're thinking of selling for sale by owner, do me a favor and call me first, and at least let me give you some information that can help you sell your property and protect yourself and your home and your family so that you don't wind up on the evening news. Number 4, not trusting your own instincts when hiring a realtor. We're going to get into this next segment in more depth, but here's the deal. There are plenty of agents out there, a few of which are notorious and are probably calling you right now if you had your home on the market and it came off. They're notorious for talking a good talk and just not following through. And I looked at some of these agents. I'm obviously not going to name any names, but I looked at their stats, and they sell like 30% of what they list. So 3 out of 10 homes are going to sell. So what are they doing and what are they not doing? When you're sitting down with an agent and they're kind of skirting the important questions. How many homes did you sell? How quickly did they sell? Where were they? What was the price range? Those are very basic questions. How many of the homes that you sold last year were sellers versus buyers? If they're kind of a trickster and they dance around the answers to those questions, go with your gut on that. There should be no reason why they're hiding that information from you. And number 5, that kind of to play a different part of that is don't just hire a realtor based on your personal preference. Don't go with your mother's, brother's, friend's, uncle's realtor buddy because your family knows him. Do your research. Make sure that this is the right decision for you. Make sure this is the right agent for you. Don't just say, hey, you're a friend. I know that you've sold real estate in the past, so I'm just going to give you this listing. And I know that that's hard. That's a lot easier said than done. But if you go into that from the get-go with the right mentality, and it's done so from the standpoint of earning the business, not just being given the business, I think that that's going to serve you well throughout the length of that transaction, whether it's a successful one or not. Number 6, over-customizing your house for the neighborhood. I'll tell you what, I have a seller that is getting ready to list their home at the end of the month, and it's in a nice neighborhood, but it's not in a luxury neighborhood, I would say. But the house is unbelievable. If you picked up that house and you moved it to a different neighborhood, it'd be $1 million home. The amount of stuff that they've done to that house, and they've renovated it the way that they wanted to, and they've used very high end upgrades. Bosch, Sub-Zero. They just completely ripped out a room and made it a huge closet with granite countertop folding area and a nice Tiffany chandelier. It's kind of crazy, but it's awesome. It's such a nice house, but it's they're not going to get that money out because the market just isn't going to support that, and they know that. But just make wise decisions when renovating property. If your home's worth $200,000, don't put in a $50,000 kitchen. You're not going to get your money back on that. Number 7, pricing your home based on how much profit you'd like to make. I talked about this a little bit earlier. How much you want to make from the sale or how much you bought it for and have invested really has nothing to do with what a buyer is willing to pay for it now, because, of course, a buyer's going to look at what's sold, what's the market saying the house is worth. And this is very difficult for a lot of sellers to get over as well. I bought it for this and I put this much into it and I'm just not going to sell it for anything less than that. And that's fine, but you're probably going to have to wait until the market can support that, because realtors don't set prices, buyers do. And they do that by consistently purchasing like-kind properties over time so that we can then draw some comparisons and contrasts and figure out what we think that property is worth. Number 8, letting your emotions rule your head in negotiations with buyers. I will tell you that a lot of my clients and I come up with a strategy beforehand to negotiate contracts. And, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in the top 1% of agents for the past 5 years in a row. And my clients win. We win in negotiations. We make money in negotiations. And that's the fun part for me. So make sure your agent knows how to do that and make sure that you're removing the emotion from it. Number 9, not disclosing problems or past history of your home. That's just common sense, folks. If you've had a major problem, you've got a property disclosure statement that you need to fill out that's attached to your listing agreement, and you need to be truthful with that, because all it's going to do, if they find out, is it's going to come back to bite you. And then number 10, trying to sell your home before it's physically ready, before you've done some repairs, or before you've just spruced it up in general. So I'll tell you this, rather than going through that, if you contact me through my website, I have a 90-point checklist that I've written myself based on experience for sellers before listing their home. So go to my website, listingsincharleston.com, or call me 843-345-1273, and I'll give you a copy of that list. So stick around, because we'll be right back. We're going to talk about expired listings, withdrawn listings, and what you need to do to sell your home in 2014 that wasn't working last year. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. I'll be right back.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on The Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. WTMA. Expert news and views on the Lowcountry real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thank you for joining me this hour. If you've been with me since the start at 8 o'clock, you know that now we're going to talk about sellers. You know, you've had your home on the market for, who knows, a few months, maybe even a few cases, a few years, and you're just tired of it. You want to sell your house. You don't know why it's selling. Your agents keep telling you they can sell it, and it's not sold, and it's frustrating, I know. So that's what I want to talk about this segment, and I want to jump right into it because I'm very passionate about this. I work with a lot of expired and withdrawn listings, and it's almost like I have to play real estate agent / counselor / therapist because they've been through this roller coaster with their previous agent. They said that, it was going to get sold in 60 days or less. It didn't happen. They didn't live up to their end of the bargain, basically. So I know that there are a lot of you listening, and you've been waiting for this. Sorry for keeping you waiting, but it's the last segment here, and we're gonna talk about that. Before we do, my number, if you want to talk with me about your specific situation, if you've had your home on the market, it's not selling, you've been on and off the market with a few different agents, just give me a call, 843-345-1273, 843-345-1273, or go to my website. And if you click on the sellers tab, I've got a pretty long list there of properties that I've sold that other agents have not, and how quickly it took me to sell it versus how long they had the listing. So that website is listingsincharleston.com, www.listingsincharleston.com. And again, click on the sellers tab. There's a copy of my marketing outline on there. Of course, it's not everything because that's proprietary information I only share with potential clients. But there's a lot of good stuff on there. Of course, testimonials. You can search the MLS, see what your house is worth. So I invite you to go there or call me, 843-345-1273. So here we are. It's January 4th, Saturday, and I'm assuming that for those of you that had your property on the market last year and your listing agent wrote the contract to where it expired on December 31st, that January 1st, your phone lit up like a Christmas tree, and for the past few days, you have been bombarded with calls from real estate agents. And I'd be willing to bet, like I said earlier on the show, that by this time next week, you'll probably have been called over 100 times. It makes you want to take your phone and chuck it through a window. And the thing is you don't know who's calling you, really. You don't know if the agents are brand new agents. You don't know if they've, sold a few houses. They don't know if they're the top agent in the market. And it's always amazing to me, the number of agents that say, well, I'm the number one agent. There can only be one number one, folks. And if you go on all these websites and you look at real estate agents, I guess it's the same in any industry. They always want to tote themselves as being number one in something. Just depends on what that something is. I don't know. Selling real estate on Tuesdays, selling, homes on James Island between $250,000 and $300,000 in a 1 mile radius from Folly Road. I don't know. But anyways, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what agents typically tell sellers to get listings, and I want to tell you what more than likely happens. And of course, I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to talk about any companies. I'm just going to share with you what I hear from the sellers that I work with. About 60% of the listings that I sell were previously listed with another real estate agent. So it's amazing how consistent the conversations are with these sellers. And for the most part, they're pissed. They've had their house on the market. They are trying to sell it. They've had, in some cases, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 showings with no offer. They want to know why. Their agent can't tell them why. And they're tired of waking up and making the bed every morning. So let's start with this. Let's start with online marketing because that's where 94% of people start their search. So it makes sense that that's where we spend the most of our time, energy, resources, money, so on and so forth. So obviously, if you're going to list with a real estate agent, you're going on the MLS. Okay, that's common. Every real estate agent does that. But let's talk about the websites like Zillow and Realtor.com and Trulia. And if you're listening to this program right now and you're a seller and you've never heard of those websites, then you're missing it. You're missing the whole picture here. And it's not your fault, it's your agent's fault, because they should be on those websites. Tons and tons of leads come through my email on an annual basis from those 3 websites. So it makes sense that you get on there as soon as possible. So let me explain this to you, okay? Zillow and Trulia can be free websites to market your property on. So a lot of agents choose the free route. What's better than free? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. And think about this for a second. Let's pretend that you're a buyer and you're on Zillow.com and you inquire about a property that you see listed for sale. You say, I would like more information, and you click send. If that real estate agent isn't paying their membership fee, that lead is going to go to a random agent that is paying for an ownership interest in that zip code. So for me, I own a large portion of 29464, 29466, and 29451. That's Mount Pleasant and Isle of Palms. And I routinely get leads on listings that are not mine. Why? Because I'm paying for them because other agents aren't. So if your home's on the market and your agent says they're doing all this marketing for you, what's the point if those buyers aren't going to your listing agent? They're going to some random agent who's just going to find out what they're looking for, and they're going to show them a whole bunch of stuff, not your listing more than likely, because they probably don't know anything about it. So that's, one of my big pet peeves is just saying that you're going on these websites when in reality you're really not able to control that lead, and it's kind of pointless. That buyer might make its way to your house, but more often than not, some random agent is going to steer them in a different direction and more than likely show them what they've got listed for sale. So that's number one. Number two, this is probably number one on my list, is pictures. And this is just the bottom line, folks. If the pictures of your house suck, you're probably not going to get a lot of showings. It's just the way it is. People are online looking at 10, 20, 30, 40 homes in a 20-minute period. They're rifling through listings. If the listing that they look at doesn't capture their eye, they're on to the next one. And that's just how people are searching real estate now. They are flying through listings. They have so much information at their disposal that if something doesn't fit, if it doesn't look right, if the pictures are bad, they're going to say, "Oh, this doesn't look very nice." What do you think they're going to look at? Do you think they're going to look at a house with professional photography, or are they going to look at a house where everything's dark and there's clutter all over the place, and you've got pictures and dogs in the photo in the family room? It's just it kind of drives me nuts, to be honest with you, because it's something that is so simple. And every single one of my listings get professional photography. And again, if you go to my website, you'll see my listings look good. And I do that purposely because I know that buyers are very picky online. So if your pictures stink, take a look at it. Take a look at your listing online, even if you are listed, and just have a conversation with your realtor about it. Say, hey, is there something we can do here to make this look better? Are you willing to have photos professionally done if they look really bad? That's the easiest thing that you can do. It's not very much money. And as agents, we stand to make thousands off the sale, of course. So we should put a little skin in the game, and we should have professional photos done on our listings. I know I do, and I know it makes a big difference. And then the last thing that I want to talk with you about is marketing to other real estate agents. There's one of me and 5,000 of them. So chances are pretty high that another agent is going to sell one of my listings. I know that. I still do everything that I can. I still spend, $7,000 a month on marketing to make sure that when you sit down with me, you know that what I'm doing is going above and beyond. I'm putting skin in the game. I'm making sure that I'm creating as many opportunities as possible for us to sell your home. I'm not just putting it on the MLS and waiting for agents to call me. So marketing to agents is very important. That's something that most agents just don't do. We have the ability as agents to find out which agents have searches set up for their buyers where our listing fits their buyers' search criteria. It's called reverse prospecting. And I sit down with all these sellers and they never heard of it before. And shame on their agent for not going the extra mile and contacting those agents, because those agents may have a buyer for their listing. So there's a lot more that I could talk about. I could probably dedicate a whole show to this, and at some point I might, because it's just something I'm passionate about. So if you are considering putting your property on the market, again, give me a call, 843-345-1273, or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. You've been listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thank you so much, and I'll see you here next Saturday at 8 a.m.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.